Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Jon Gil Podcast Show. And on this episode, I'm super excited to talk about the 15 principles of winning. And I'll explain all of those here in detail. But if you can, please, as always, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much. All right, we are back. And as I mentioned, we're going to be discussing the top 15 principles to winning. And actually, I have brought my all-time favorite book. It is The Law of Success by the great Napolean Hill. And this is actually one of the best foundational books that you can ever read. I was fortunate to have this book gifted to me by my sister back when I was 21. And it allowed me to really build the foundational building blocks of the success or the wins that I've had ever since. So, with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and just break down each principle because I think anyone who is getting started in any sort of business endeavor or anything at life in general is going to want to build on these basic principles. And we're just going to get right into it. So, lesson 1, he talks about a definite chief aim. All right. And that is essentially just you have to focus 100% and sharpshoot on your goals. There's a lot of outside noise and a lot of fuzz and distractions that really drift you away from your main goal. And if you focus on a definite chief aim, and what he says is you actually write it down. Okay, so the goal is you actually write down specifically what it is that you want to do, and then also just steps that you're going to follow in order to achieve that goal and that purpose, right? So mine was, it's funny, back at when I got this at 21, mine was, okay, my definite chief aim is to own real estate. It was a little vague. I hadn't really written too much of the description or details on it yet, but I did write it down. And a few years later is when I actually ended up finally buying my first property. And that could have been also just through, the law of attraction, which is kind of actually that law of attraction, that movie that came out, that was kind of quite a hit, 5-6 years back. A lot of what that was about was on this book, The Law of Success. So, that could also be through synchronicity, right? And synchronicity is the more that you think about something, the more that those items start to appear in your daily life. That's why the power of thought is so important and why you have to choose your thoughts wisely, not focus on the negative, always focusing on the positive, being a problem solver, and finding solutions rather than always being the naysayer and the person that's going to find reasons why not to execute. Okay, so that's number 1. That's his lesson number 1, a definite chief aim. And lesson 2, he talks about self-confidence. You've heard it a lot. Self-confidence is transmitted, right? So the second that you approach anyone, when you know something inside and out, that confidence reflects and it shines. So, and that's absorbed by the other recipient. So you want to make sure that one of your other foundational building blocks and principles is having self-confidence. And I'm going to fly through these because they are, again, 15 different principles. This can take hours and hours. But, we're going to just kind of breeze through this. So lesson 3 is the habit of saving. And the habit of saving, I see this all the time. You make a little bit of money, you spend it. You get those income tax refunds, you spend it. Okay, so what he says is that really, in order to be successful, even the people at the very top have savings for their, any rainy day, anything that happens to, like what we're experiencing right now. So the bottom line is, when things come out of nowhere, out from left field, and that create turbulence in the economy, like the real estate market crash, like coronavirus, what we're experiencing, you want to have the money saved up for a rainy day. And most importantly, the problem that I had at the very beginning of my real estate career was I wanted to invest in real estate, but I was always spending the money. So I'd make $1,000 and I'd put it into the stock market, or I'd make 5,000 and I'd continue to put it into I'd put it into futures. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I felt like, okay, maybe I can just compound the money in there And eventually, who knows, I can turn that into 50 grand, 100 grand, we all get excited. So the reality was every time I would make money, I would actually end up losing it all into things that I didn't know what I was doing. So I said, okay, I have to build discipline, and I would take additional money. I would have enough money for my monthly bills. Anything above and beyond that, I would put into my savings until I was able to save up about $100,000, and that was enough for me to finally get into my first big deal. And that deal was the one that allowed me then to compound into so many others thereafter. So keep that in mind. You want to be able to save. Just build a habit of savings, because if you're not saving, you're spending. And if you're not spending, and you have to make sure that if you are going to take out of your savings and you're going to spend it somewhere, that at least it is something that is an asset and not a liability that is creating wealth, right? Ideally, it's creating wealth and cash flow, which is exactly what real estate is. It's the investment vehicle that allows you to achieve both. And that is why it's so important to have in any sort of business. I don't care if you're a restaurant owner, or if you have your own construction company, or if you're a librarian. Doesn't matter what sort of business or occupation you're in, you should have real estate, because again, it is something that is generating wealth, and it is also providing additional cash flow. Not to discount the risks involved, obviously, but that is also, there's risks involved in any sort of business endeavor, or any sort of even stable job that you might have that you think is secure, may not. Beware the pink slips. I don't think they do pink slips anymore. I think they just call you into an office and just fire you. So keep that in mind. Anyway, so lesson number 4, initiative and leadership. Again, huge building block for success. And, just having the initiative to get started is key. Okay, Nike. That's why Nike's logo and why Nike's saying is so, not the logo, but their saying is so profound. Just do it, right? That's initiative. Take the initiative to just move forward in the right direction and have faith that you already took the first step. Now take the second. All right, be the first one. It doesn't matter if no one else has done it before you. If you know and you have faith in what you're going to be doing, take the initiative and just do it. Get started. Even with this podcast, for example, I'd been listening to Gary Vee for such a long time, and he said, go out there and just do it. Get your podcast going. It doesn't matter if you know what you're doing. Get your iPhone and just start recording yourself. And I listened to that and I said, okay, well, he's right, but I didn't know where to start, and I didn't know the outline. So I just said, screw it. I didn't want to just record on my iPhone. I said, if I'm going to start, at least I want to have something that sounds nice. It's got great audio quality, because the more I searched, it said, I found that in order for someone to really vibe with what you're saying and to stay on your podcast, at least the sound quality's got to be there, right? I mean, you at least need to have some sound quality. And if you've got great video quality, then, that just helps your odds at people actually listening, right? So that was one of the key things. So I called up, I looked up, I said, screw it, I'm just going to finally do it. I went to Facebook Marketplace. I typed in podcast studio because I thought that's what you needed. But there was one that appeared, and I called the guy up. He says, when would you like to record? I said, well, and I knew that if I would have said, a week from now or 2 weeks from now, something might happen that would delay it further, and I would lose interest or lose that spark that I had right then and there. So I said, no, let's do it tomorrow. He said, great. And I was in the studio the following day, and that was the start of really just what we have here today with Locke and I. We've got our own studio. We have, we're providing the information that we always wanted to provide. And it's just a great feeling, right? And that was just because of initiative, right? And having, and leadership, obviously, you're going to take a lot of risks in life. You have to sometimes lead. You have to be the one that takes charge and inspires confidence in all of those around you, right? Going back to self-confidence with leadership combined just creates amazing things that you can feel the energy, and people resonate with that and want to be with a leader. They don't want to be with someone that is not showing confidence in what they do. And so, lesson number 4 in this book, Initiative and Leadership, is a very powerful principle. And now we're going to move on to lesson number 5, and that is imagination. So in life, you've got to have the imagination, right? You have to be able to see what others don't see. There's a little bit of that, well, a lot of that in real estate investing. And, that imagination is, for me, was, okay, guys, here is a property so the first deal that I did, someone said, I'd seen that property years back, and, no one's going to buy the ugly duckling on the block. And I looked at it and I said, you know what? I see something here. It's in a great area. I feel that I can turn this around. You need to have the imagination sometimes that others don't see. So I was kind of getting bashed a little bit for buying this property. But, 1 year later, exactly 1 year later, I was able to sell it. And I think, it's sold for about $200,000 extra in profit, actually $200,000 plus. So had I listened again to the naysayers or people that said, oh, well, it's the ugliest property on the block, then I would have never had the opportunity to use that property and then catapult from there and get more properties into our portfolio. So keep that in mind. Have the imagination, and have the imagination, more importantly, to be a problem solver, right? We mentioned that earlier on. You want to be a problem solver. Don't be the naysayer. There's way too many people that just get into something thinking, oh, it's never going to work. And those are the people that, unfortunately, they're just always going to be like that. I mean, they can change. There are ways and to change your mindset. But, from the beginning, be the one in the room that is saying, no, I think we can get this done. I think that there may be a solution here. Imagine if Elon Musk had listened to all of his naysayers, right? Everyone that doubted him, even when Tesla was starting to tank, everyone said, oh, the company's going to go bankrupt. The guy was sleeping under his table, at the office. And he, again, has shown everyone that whatever he puts his mind to is possible. And you want to talk about imagination. The guy's now wanting to colonize Mars, for God's sakes. So definitely that's someone that you want to aspire to emulate. So lesson number 6 is the enthusiasm, right? You want to have enthusiasm. You don't want to be someone that is sharing knowledge that's boring. And I'll tell you, you want to talk about enthusiasm. Have you ever downloaded Audible's books? And some of these people that read on behalf of the author, some of the books I cannot get past because the narrator is so boring that I can barely get past the first few sentences. I mean, it's terrible. So again, anything in life, you want enthusiasm, right? You want to give off that great energy. You want to just be that person that always is just ready to go. And I know there are days that it can be a little tough, especially if things aren't going right, but just look at the bigger perspective, right? Look at the macro view on things. Don't be so focused on the micro things, right? Be the person that understands that it's just part of the waves of life, right? You might be going down on this wave, but eventually it's going to pick back up. And that's really life. I mean, it's a hedonic treadmill. So, it goes up, goes down, and that's life. That's the beauty and the joy of life. But know that, right? Experience that. Say it, okay, I'm going through this shitty day right now, but I know that this is just one of so many other beautiful days, or one of so many other days that I'm going to have going forward that eventually will work out, right? So keep that in mind. Enthusiasm is highly contagious, and you want to just hang out with people that are enthusiastic on life in general, that focus on the bigger picture. And lesson 7, self-control. Wow. The importance of self-control is so important as well. Just having the ability to bite your tongue, especially right now with everything going on with the riots and the looting I'm not saying, definitely I am not ever going to get into politics on this because this is not my this is not the channel to do it in. But my point is that there has to be a level of self-control in anything, in life, in business, right? Someone says something that you don't like, bite your tongue sometimes, all right? That might be the best thing that you can do in that moment in order to move along a deal. Because guess what? When you're at the closing table and you're finally getting that commission check, you're going to say, thank God I never opened up my mouth and said what I really wanted to say, because had I said it, maybe this deal would have died. And anyone in the real estate business knows exactly what I'm talking about. There are sellers that are just a pain in the butt. You've got buyers that are a pain in the butt. You have attorneys that are just that would rather kill a deal than make it work. You have appraisers that are just god awful. And it's your job to be the person that comes in, has a little bit of self-control and self-restraint, not, be the voice of reason and see it through. I've had so many times where I have a seller and a buyer wanting to just, go at each other, and you're the buffer, right? So you're the one in the middle that's just taking all the punches, but you know that this is part of the equation. This is what is needed. This is the secret sauce that makes the deal work. It's what gets the deal to the finish line. So you just have to be the voice of reason. Always remember that. So never let your ego get the best of you, and focus on the big picture. Say to yourself, okay, they might have insulted me. They might have said some things that anyone else, might have hurt their feelings a little bit. But at the end of the day, I don't care, because, they said what they said. They had to get it off their chest. You were there. You're the sponge. You're absorbing all that, that hostile energy, and then, a few weeks later, a month later, when the deal closes, everyone's, happy. They're buying you lunch. Typically they don't buy you lunch. You're the one that should actually end up buying them lunch to show gratitude, right? And that's another very important topic. And I think it's actually one of the principles that we're going to get into later on. But next up is lesson 8. And I would say that for me, this is probably one of the most important principles in the entire book. And that is habit of doing more than paid for. This is so key, because there are so many times that I hear, well, it's above my pay scale, or it's above my pay grade. And, that's not what I'm here to do. That's not part of my job description. And what that does is it's not setting you up for success when you have that mindset. When you have the habit of doing more than paid for, you become someone that the company admires. You become someone that the company uses as an example of how they want the rest of their employees to be. You become someone that not just does it for work, but even in general in life, you become a person that goes the extra mile because you know that it's right, right? So you don't judge what's right based off what's your job description. You do it because you know that you are helping someone. And if you've learned anything through these discussions in my past podcasts, is the more value you provide in life, the more rewards you will receive. Life is all about providing value, right? And anything, you go to the alley and you find a broken table that's missing a leg, you put a leg on it, you buffer it up, you polish it. Guess what? That garbage is now worth something that you can sell for. Okay? So that's life. It's basically taking something, giving it more value, and eventually, great things come from that. So when you become indispensable also in the company, you can now demand and command more out of your employer. Or if you're in real estate, same thing. But let's go back to that other example. I don't think that there is any employer out there that if you did more than what you were paid for, if you went to them and said, a year from now and said, look, here's everything that I've done, and here's all the additional value that I provided, and that has a tangible effect on your business revenue, I think that I should probably get a raise. I don't think any employer is going to say no to that. If you can put more money in someone's pocket and you're asking just for a little bit, and you're asking for a slightly higher amount relative to that increase that you've provided, there's no one in their right mind that will say no. So, keep that in mind. And if they do say no, well, then guess what? Throw in the towel, because that's someone that also you may not want to work for, because they also don't see the value that you've provided, right? Even though you have laid it out to them clearly in black and white. So, but again, it's just a great life lesson, just doing the habit of doing more than paid for. And it's not just paid for, it's just being in the habit of always just doing more. And lesson 9 is having a pleasing personality. That's huge. I mean, there are times when I don't even want to deal with someone just based off of the fact on our initial conversation, because they lack so much. They just drain you, right? They have this just negative energy, and it's from the beginning. It's problems, it's headaches, it's the big word that you always hear from these people is it's unfair. And unfair, that's one of the key words, trigger words. So, having a pleasing personality is just common sense, and it goes back to having that enthusiasm. Do you see how everything ties into what we've talked about earlier? When you have that pleasing personality, people like you. You want to, people like you. And not that that's necessarily important. Don't value the opinions of others, but just have a pleasing personality. For me, what that means is someone can just say thank you. A thank you goes a long way. Excuse me, like common manners. You'd be surprised the amount of phone calls that I receive where, the other person on the other line, I've expressed to them everything that I can do to help them. And they say, okay, like they don't end in thank you, or you open a door for someone and they don't acknowledge the fact that you've opened the door for them, right? Now, I mean, you're still going to continue to do that because it's the right thing to do, right? You're not going to stop being a good person because of some a-hole. But at the end of the day, that person obviously does not have a pleasing personality. And that's probably someone who is miserable in life in general. And people who are miserable, typically that energy continues to compound and compound throughout life. And they're the ones that always are the naysayers and end up saying, well, it's unfair because of this or because of that. Well, it's because honestly, hey, you've attracted that into your life just because of your personality. I mean, come on. So anyway, lesson number 10, accurate thought. And that's, again, it goes back into something that we talked about earlier, which is a definite chief aim. And then just having the accurate thought. Again, that is just focusing on the positive outlook on things, focusing on, and one of my favorite sayings is, why does a horse have blinders? And that's because it's focusing on its own race. You have to be like that horse and be focused. Do not be distracted by everything else going on around you in life. Just have the right thoughts in mind that are going to help you move forward in the right direction to your end goal, right? So lesson 11 is concentration. And this one I think we're all guilty of. Well, it's a great principle for the obvious. You need to concentrate, right? You can't have so many distractions. I'm guilty of this because I feel like I've got self-diagnosed ADD. Sometimes I'm all over the place. But really, when you concentrate and you focus and you sit and you actually say, okay, I'm going to turn away all the distractions. I'm going to put my phone on silent. I'm not going to take any more phone calls. We're going to concentrate on solving the problem. Great things happen, right? So essentially, concentration is just one of those important building blocks that we all know about. And there's tools out there that you can use to eliminate some of the distractions so that you can focus easier. Do you work at home? I mean, sometimes it might make sense to just go out and rent an office. get away from home. Your environment plays a huge role in how well you're able to concentrate and stay focused. So make sure that you're always eliminating any distractions around you, TV, phones, social media, and, get focused. Come on. It's time to move forward and, get things done. And lesson number 12 is cooperation. And obviously that's a huge building block. You want to be able to cooperate in anything. In order to sometimes advance and push the goal forward, it just makes sense. I know there's a lot of people sometimes out there that want to take the glory all for themselves, and they're not willing to cooperate in order to say, well, hey, I did it all on my own. I didn't have any help. Well, the reality is that in life, you need to be able to cooperate and work through things with other people in order to help accelerate your common goals. So even in real estate, right, there's broker cooperating commission, right? So you get a listing, the seller's paying 5%. You can either split it however way you want, right? Because the law does not govern even how much commission should be charged, right? That's actually against the law if brokers try to collude on the sort of commission, the industry average commission. But my point is that even in real estate, right, you get further when you cooperate. And I've seen a lot of brokers not want to share their listings so that they can keep 100% of the pie and say, okay, no, well, I'm going to keep 5% of this commission because that's, say you're making 10 grand. I mean, well, who wouldn't want 100% of that pie, right? And if they go out and have to split it with another broker, well, I mean, it's kind of tough to say, I'm only getting 5 grand here, which is still really good, right? But what happens is that's why you see sometimes properties not selling for such a long time. And that's essentially because there are many brokers out there that won't put it on the multiple listing service. They're called pocket listings. They'll keep them. They'll try to sell them to their network. And what that's doing is that's really hurting the seller because, they may need that money right away. I mean, if they're wanting to sell, it's because they need to sell, right? So being able to cooperate is just one of those things that that you should do, and it helps accelerate your overall success, right? So lesson number 13, and we're getting close to lesson 15. Lesson 13 is failure. Having to understand that in life, you're going to experience failure, no matter what. It's obvious, right? So what he says here is that you need to fail. You need to fail in order to grow, right? It's like that great saying, you only have to be right once, right? You could have lost 100 times or 99 times. On that 100th try, you finally got it right. You only need to be right once, and then, to just be looked at as an overnight success and to be looked at as someone who actually had never failed prior, right? But all those other lessons is you figured out 99 other ways why that thing, or you found 99 ways why it wouldn't work, right? So on that 100th, you figured it out. So the bottom line is that you need to have the failures. You need to be able to get hit. You need the punches, and if you don't, it's not even that you don't or you won't. You're going to have them, period. I mean, that's life. That's actually part of the fun of life is knowing that it's not so easy, right? And it's part of the hunt. You need to have it. So, but just being able to understand that is part of the life and part of that hedonic treadmill that we talked about earlier, things go great. Sometimes they don't. Things go great. Sometimes they don't. That's just how it is. I mean, that's the journey. So enjoy it. And lesson 14, tolerance. Being tolerant, having tolerance is a huge, huge principle that I feel a lot of people are lacking, especially now with everything that's going on. It's just having the tolerance of understanding where people that may disagree with you are coming from. Okay, you don't necessarily have to agree, but understand that, they have a point of view that differs from you. Maybe they've just had a different upbringing. Maybe there's just things that you may not understand, right? But at least having the humility to say, okay, well, I'm going to listen to you, because what's going on right now with the left and the right and everybody fighting, it's essentially, there's two extremes. And the latest research has shown that actually the people who are extremely on the left and extremely on the right both have the same problems, mental problems, and I forgot the exact word for it, but they're both experiencing the exact same thing. And, you want to be someone in the middle. You want to be someone that understands that nothing in life is perfect, okay? And try to always be the voice of reason, be tolerant, understand that whoever it is that you're dealing with is going through their own set of problems, and, just be understanding of that. And then maybe you can help them to understand your side, right? And if they don't understand it, then that's okay. But at least just have the humility to be able to speak as decent human beings, and understand that just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means that they're coming from a slightly different angle, okay? But I'm sure that if you found common ground, you would realize that there might be 99 things that you both agree with, and there's only that one or two things that you guys just happen to disagree on, right? So, but that's part of life. That's actually the beauty of life, that it's not one-sided. It's a melting pot of ideas and views and beliefs. So lesson number 15 is the golden rule. And with that is the last part here of the book. And the golden rule is, can you guess? It's treat others the way that you would want to be treated. That's actually probably the most important. I mean, that's why they call it the golden rule. It's so obvious. Just treat your other fellow humans and friends and people that you meet the same as you would want to be treated, right? You treat the janitor the same way you treat the CEO. You treat the doorman the same way that you treat, the business executive. And because that's how you would want to be treated, right? So anyway, those are the 15 principles written in Napoleon Hill's Law of Success. And it's the 15 principles to winning by the motivational champion of all time, Napoleon Hill. And he's also the author of Think and Grow Rich. So I highly recommend all of you to get this book. And if you like what you heard, please, as always, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much again.